Welcome to Let the Quran Speak. COVID-19 has revealed the terrible conditions in long-term care facilities. With me to discuss this is Dr. Shabir Ally. Dr. Shabir, welcome to Let the Quran Speak.
Pleasure to be on.
Now, due to the coronavirus outbreak in many long-term care homes, the Ontario government sent in the armed forces to help, and they wrote a report. And in the report, they detailed some of the conditions within these long-term care facilities. They found things like insect infestations, the fact that residents weren't being able to eat 3 meals a day, many other things, bed sores on many residents. What are your thoughts on the report that came out, Dr. Shabir?
Well, actually, this was a shocking report, and it gripped the country as a whole to know that things like this are happening right here on our soil. Canada is an advanced nation, and we take care of all of the various elements of society, and it was really shocking to see that our seniors are so neglected. It gives a new meaning to SOS. It's now Save Our Seniors.
Mm-hmm. You know, more than 80% of the deaths from COVID-19 in Canada have been in these long-term care facilities. But the fact is that they've been in bad conditions for a very long time. This is not the first time we're hearing about this. This is something that has been going on for a very long period of time due to poor staffing and the fact that not enough money has been put into these long-term care facilities, and they haven't been supervised very well.
Yeah, in the past, people used to keep their older folks at home and care for them the best that they could. And that is still the best option for many people. But there are cases when the health of the seniors are so deteriorated that they cannot be cared for properly at home, or trying to care for them at home would put such an unnecessary strain on the family. I should say, rather, an unbearable strain on the family, that it becomes inevitable that we must resort to the long-term care facilities. But then we need to adjust our society to make that a very viable means of life for our seniors. And all hands have to be on deck with this. Those who are placing their seniors in long-term care facilities, but also the society as a whole has to see this as an imperative and make this right.
Mm-hmm. You know, you mentioned that many families, in Eastern societies keep their elderly folks at home, right? And they include them as part of the family as much as possible. And I think that has some value to it as well. Dr. Shabir, what does Islam say about the way in which we treat the elderly? Is there some sort of religious imperative to be able to see the elderly as having value to us?
Oh, absolutely. And this goes back to the biblical tradition. In the Bible, we are told that God gave 10 commandments to Moses, and this has actually formed the crux of the Torah. It is even said that God wrote these commandments on 2 tablets of stone, and when the stone tablets were broken, God replaced them. And the 5th commandment of these 10 is that you should honor your father and your mother. The Quran picks up upon that, and within the Quran's 10 commandments, if we can spell them out as 10, but the Quranic equivalent of these commandments places great emphasis on the duty towards parents. So the first commandment, if we're to start itemizing them in the Quran, in the 17th chapter of the Quran, the 22nd verse, says that God has enjoined upon you to have no other but him for God. And then the second commandment, it would seem, is that you are to honor your parents. And interestingly enough, the Quran lays even greater emphasis on the care of your mother. But for both father and mother, the Quran says that if one of them or both should attain old age in your presence, this is now the 23rd verse of Surah 17, then you are to treat them kindly and not even speak a harsh word to them, but lower before them the wings of humility and submission. And then pray for them. Say, my Lord, have mercy on my parents as they used to care for me when I was young.
So there is a strong emphasis on taking care of your parents. Is there anything about, the fact that you should take care of them when they are elderly?
Yes, in fact, the verse I just mentioned says, "Imma ya'tiyanna indakum al-kibara ahaduhuma aw kilahuma." If one of them or both of them should attain old age in your presence, then you're not to speak a word of reproof to them, but speak to them gently. And in Hadith, it is mentioned that the Prophet, peace be upon him, enjoined upon believers, saying that those who do not respect their elders or do not have mercy on the youngsters, they're not one of this community. And so there's a strong emphasis on taking care of elders on the whole, but of course your own parents even much more so.
Dr. Shabir, do you have advice for people who are considering putting their family, sending their parents, for example, to these long-term facilities, perhaps because they have no other option at this point?
Yes, while we're looking at it from that angle of somebody having no other option, I want to also emphasize, Safiyyah, that we are in a modern society in which sometimes it's not a last resort, but people resort to it anyway because they may find it too inconvenient to have older folks around. To care for anyone requires some sacrifice. Even getting into a marriage requires some compromise. You're not going to be able to do everything you want to do because you're sharing your life with somebody else. So there has to be some compromise, some give and take. And if you are already, related to your parents, which is undeniable, well, naturally there has to be some give and take. There has to be some compromise. Parents have to give scope to their children to live their lives to the fullest, as the fullest can be. But also children need to look after their aging parents and to give their aging parents a happy retirement as much as can be done. So there has to be some compromise here. Sometimes in a modern society, with all of the advertisements and so on that we see, the older folks come to be seen as a kind of as an impediment in the way of happiness. I mean, if you see an ad calling you to go visit a tropical island and have your vacation there, they will show you beach scenes in which you're not going to see an older person in a wheelchair.
It's almost like they disappear from society at a certain point, right? Maybe past 50 or something like this.
Yeah. So what is being celebrated and promoted as meaning or implying a happy life often does not include having your aging parents around, and so we have to turn that around, and we have to celebrate and promote the need and the virtue and value of taking care of parents, so that sending the parents to a long-term care facility is seen as a sort of a last resort and as an undesirable outcome, one that should be avoided if folks can do better, and often folks can do better. But to be fair, I want to also address your question from the point of view, like what happens when this becomes a last resort?
Let's say, for example, somebody really does need that 24-hour care and their family cannot provide it for some reason.
Yes, that's right.
For example, and someone has Alzheimer's or something, right?
True. And also, there may be cases where it's not so much the patient that requires the care, but to be fair, there may be some family situations where the caregivers themselves would need a break and need to have this kind of relief. So the relief is there. But if you're going to place your parents in a long-term care facility, make every effort to investigate the facilities that are available and choose the best option. I'm sure that everybody does that anyway, but it needs to be emphasized all the more in the light of this shocking report. When you think about,
they say that sometimes some families don't visit their family member within these long-term care facilities, so they don't actually see what's going on.
Yeah, that may be the case as well. And there is a sense in Canada of entitlement. We've paid, and therefore we're entitled to good service. So if you're paying for a long-term care facility, you expect that the service will be up to par, and so people feel relieved. Okay, we don't have to worry about it. Our parents are there; they're being cared for well. We're working hard. We're working 2 jobs. We're paying for all of this, so it must be fine. But there's nothing to replace the personal care and personal attention. And while you're paying for some services that you could not have provided yourself, what you could provide and nobody else can is your personal attention to your parents, your regular phone calls, your regular visits, your being there, and even performing some of the services that you've already paid for, but services that you would like to perform out of the love and care for your aging parents.
Thank you for that, Dr. Shabir. I hope COVID-19 will make us rethink our attitudes towards the elderly and other vulnerable people as well. Thank you.
You're welcome.